The last few weeks we've had a series called Transfusion. It started with first the transfusion of receiving God's nutrients, of God's life-giving grace to us, we call it by God's Word, and some of us, we're trying to memorize Scripture each week, right? And then last week, we had a transfusion. It's for the church itself, a whole different mentality. We want a church where your sons, your daughters, your grandchildren with a home and naturally would like to come. And that's a transfusion, because maybe we have to change and make adjustments. And this week, with that strange gospel, it's a transfusion. Change the way we think. Because Jesus is a little bit there as well, commending the dishonesty. And I mentioned this week, it's very simple. We went to Matthew, it's a simple scripture. You cannot serve both God and money. Matthew 6:24. I bet you already have it memorized, don't you? That's it. So keep at it. Keep at it. Anyway, there was a young man in Montana. He bought a horse from a farmer. He paid $100 for the horse and was to be delivered the next day. Anyway, next day came, no horse. The farmer said, I'm sorry, the horse is dead. Dead? He said, yeah, he died. So, well, in that case, give me back my money. He said, I can't do it. I spent it already. Oh, boy, now what? He said, well, give me the dead horse anyway. So what the heck do you want with a dead horse? He said, I'm going to raffle it off. You can't raffle off a dead horse. Oh, yes, I can. You wait and see. I just won't tell anybody that it's dead. Hey, about a month later, the farmer bumps into this young man and said, hey, whatever happened to that dead horse? He said, I raffled it off. I sold 500 tickets at $2 each, and I made a $998 profit. He said, well, did anybody complain? He said, well, just the guy who won. So I gave him back his $2. And I don't know if that's kind of shady. I don't know if that's a little bit dishonest, huh? But you got to hit the guy. The guy's clever, huh? You know, he got $100. He made money. You got to hand it to him. What a smart guy. And that's what Jesus probably tells us also in this parable. It's a strange parable, all right? You know, parables were told by Jesus spontaneously. He didn't say the night before, taking notes, and here's a good story. He just sort of, he had that gift. And another characteristic of parables is that he had a surprise ending. You know, sort of not the way you think it's going to end. Like last week, the prodigal son. They didn't think he's going to praise the son that went off and had a crazy life. Whoa, that's different. But today's not only a surprise ending. For those listening, it's shocking. All right? It's a shocking ending. Because here he tells a story about the steward who's dishonest. The boss finds out, says, guess what? You're going to get fired. But he's quick on his feet, so it's like a story, and he says, wait a minute, I don't want to be homeless. I don't want to be broke. I got to make sure I have a land on my feet. So he calls him, what do you owe my master? How much? Cut it down by 50%. Wow. And you? 20%. And so they're listening to this, like, whoo, man. And then Jesus says, he commends the dishonest steward. He said, what? You're commending them? He's a thief. He cheats. He lies. You, the rabbi, the teacher, you're saying, that's good? And so after that, probably notice in my gospel, we have all these other things, sort of tag-ons. That's because even the apostles couldn't figure it out either. They had to say, Jesus, well, let's say some other things. You can't serve with God and money. You know, dishonest in little things, you be dishonest in big things. That's true, but that's not what he said. He's praising dishonesty. Does that mean he wants us to be dishonest and cheat? No. But he's saying, you see how the people of this world are? They make sure, whatever it takes, they're going to be okay. You have to admire their drive, their determination, their cleverness. You've got to admire that. We, the things of the Spirit, the things of eternity, things of God, complacent, laid back, and outright lazy. He said, no. You've got to be like them. That whatever it takes, we're going to do. Like football coaches. Aren't they amazing? Football coaches. I mean, for one game, they spend hours. They live. Sometimes they sleep in the office, going over game film, analyzing every little play. Imagine. Well, let's just say next Sunday, I tell you guys, next Sunday, guess what? I'm going to tell you, invite not just a friend, but someone who's away from God, someone who doesn't have a church affiliation. You can bring as many as you want. Bring your friends, your neighbors, your co-workers, or just bring people over the street. And bring them here because I want them to hear the good news, the gospel, touched by God's grace. All right? We're going to do that next Sunday. I can promise you, we won't run out of room. But if I told you this, next Sunday, I want you to bring the same scenario. Someone who's far from God, doesn't belong to a church, has no relation to God, and each person you bring, I will be there, and I will give you $50 for each person. What? $50? Oh, we're having a bus load. Okay? Oh, we will have, whoa! We have the life, that'd be unbelievable. $50 each. Come here, you just grab it, come with me. You know, you're kidnapping, whatever it takes. All right, whatever it takes, 50. See, that's what you said, the mentality. For money? Whoa, I'll do it. I want people to hear God. Yeah, right, fine, yeah, sure. And that's what God says. And that's what really Jesus is saying. And so we who want a church where our sons go to the one company have to think, how can I get them? How can I bring them? Last week I mentioned to you some of the statistics about the Catholic Church. And we're falling on hard times. Now I want you to know it's not just the Catholic Church, okay? Most churches. Did you know 1,400 pastors, not Catholic, Christian, leave the ministry each month? 1,400. Either retirement, moral failure, or they go to different ministry. 1,400 a month. They close between 4,000 and 7,000 churches a year. So it's not just us. But there are churches that do well, though, that do prosper. And have committed and dedicated Christians. We become defensive and say, well, they're just really entertaining that. That's what they're doing. That's how they get, the music, the lights. It's just entertainment. I don't know if that's true or not, but let's say it's true. What's wrong with entertainment anyway? You don't want me to be bored. You want to be entertained. We don't use that word, but that's what you want, right? And it's always entertainment. Think about Moses. It was entertainment. God gave him that burning bush. Whoa, check that out. Oh, and that's what God got him. It's a burning bush. Ooh. Yeah, call it. What do you think it is? You're going to draw him to Jesus. He's a great teacher, but he's a great entertainer. We don't make use the word entertainer, but he was entertainer. There's no TV, there's no radio, there's movies, nothing. He tells a great story. And he drew people because he was interesting, he was entertaining. They loved the stories. Not only that, he was a walking food pantry, right? There's food. They're hungry. He healed. You don't need anything to do with him following Jesus. It's, quote, entertaining, it was interesting. That's how it works. Okay? Why, even the Catholic Church, we were great entertainers. We were missionaries in different countries when we stayed. We could just teach them the faith. We built schools, hospitals, we fed them. It's youth centers, it's part of the draw. You have to. You think about the old medieval churches of great cathedrals. They came from huts, hovels, and wow, the art, the music, the smoke, the incense, it's entertainment. You had nothing else, this is where it's at. So it's all part of it. All right, don't just say that we all are entertainment. Now you can realize what's the core, how far do you go? I say in church to what people want are the 3 H's. You really got to focus on the 3 H's. Homily, hymns, and hospitality. That's really what it says. You kind of focus on those 3. Homily, hymns, and hospitality. Let's look at hospitality. Now this may seem like a trivial point to you, but it's simply this. Should people talk in church? Yes or no? Who are the old timers? People talk in church? Should we yes or no? No? Yeah? Okay. How many of us were taught the rule is this, you don't talk in church? That was it, right? It was it. There was no talking in church. You walk that, bing, it's over. You don't open your mouth. And since I'm not against that, it makes sense, because this is not just an auditorium, this is not just a hall, this is not just a building. And it's sacred not because we have stained glass windows, not because we have steps, not because we have all the acoustics, it's because of the tabernacle, Jesus is there. Out of respect and reverence, I'm in a different place. And so we're quiet. This is God's house. And there's a lot to be commended about that. But I think somehow we've got to be just tweak a little bit, I think when you come into church, we sort of have like the air flying rule. You take an air trip, on a plane. Basically, this is what you want. Person sits by you, say, hi, how are you? Fine. And then leave me alone. I want to sleep. I want to read my book. I don't want to hear you talk for the next 2.5 hours. In a way, that's almost the way it is. Usually, sometimes you talk, usually, good, okay, thank you, and that's it. So at least when you come to church, at least the airline rule, you can greet your neighbor. And I ask you to greet your neighbor. You have my permission. You do not have to wait before Mass, okay, greet your neighbor. You sit beside that person for the last 15 minutes. You're allowed to say, hi, how are you? Please. I ask you to do that. Go sit to your left, your right, just say hi. How's your wife? Oh, nice shirt. Some game last night. Yeah, that's it. Then get down to business. You don't have to go over every single play that you know. You don't have to wait. All right? But I think we really, in a sense, to be welcoming to one another. Now, the other thing I sometimes wrestle with that ego pad is this. Maybe not so much of this mess, but I know the early Mass, and the 3rd, 4 o'clock, and maybe even here. Many people who live alone. In fact, this is their only social outing they take during the week. Perhaps other than going to the doctor's office, this is their big outing. And the only time they're with people is when they're sitting in the waiting room to see the doctor. So this is it. This is the big social outing. And the rest of the week they're by themselves. And they're alone. And it says it's wrong that they talk to someone they feel safe with, who feel they can trust. And so maybe even that needs to change, especially those who are alone the whole week. And finally they're with people. Can they talk a little? Because essentially they be all that they have. And so maybe I need to be flexible there as well. But the thing is this, I want you to know that because people talk in church doesn't mean you're hospitable, doesn't mean you're warm, or doesn't mean you're welcoming just because there's talking going on in church. Put yourself in this scenario, perhaps it has happened to you. You're going to some sort of social gathering, it could be a party, it could be a meeting, whatever it may be. If you're running a little late, you get there, and you walk in and people are already talking. They're laughing, in clusters, in groups. Now, if you're extroverts, this is no problem. You just barge right in, you have no difficulty whatsoever. I understand that. God bless you. But for we who are introverts, who are shy, whoa, it's scary. You walk, oh my God, everybody's talking, and they don't even notice. They're just talking. Not that they're rude, not that they're incorrect, it's just they're engaging in conversation. And so you stand and you look at it, and you slip out. You leave. You say, well, how was it? Well, I said, you would say, well, they're not really that friendly, that warm. What do you mean? They were talking, they was laughing. I know, but not to me. So I want to say that also, that even if you're talking to your neighbor, someone walks in, especially someone who is new, you know who they are, because you sit in the same seats almost every Sunday, you know, and then all of a sudden walks in. I'm actually having a radar go on, a sensitivity to that new person. And you make sure that you welcome them and that you greet them. Because it's even worse, if you're talking, they sit there, they get even more isolated now. Better walk in that no one talks, at least I don't stick out. But if you're talking, you know, and then and no one, oh God, that hurts. And that could be your son, your daughter, your grandchild. So say, wait a minute, I would have an attendance, especially to one who may be visiting, who's new, I will make sure. And even if they come during the service, they come in late, and they're stepping over your feet, and they're like, hey, nice to see you. Welcome. Wow. Wow. See, that's a transfusion. Jesus said, you got to change the way you think. And so with that, we're trying to begin to develop 3 different ministries. One of them is what we call the parking attendance separate. We want people to be outside, when they drive in, and you sort of help them park their cars. Now, that's probably not that difficult typically. But what we're saying, we want people there who are those extroverts who like people, and they smile. And what we say is, we are happy to see you. We are glad you are here. And the bonus, you can wear one of those nice orange vests. How's that? Maybe even a flashlight in the sunny out. But anyway, a nice orange vest. You say, wow. They're greeting me already? That's right. We're happy to see you parked right here. We need people to do that. Where they go, we need someone just to do that's not that hard. Just wave them in, like maybe you were a patrol boy back in the day at school. Wasn't that great when that badge and that little power stop? I loved it. I was that job once. I loved it. First feel authority, that job. Wait, relive your childhood dream once again. Put on that vest. And then we always ask, we need greeters at the door. If nothing else, those doors are heavy. You don't have to go to the gym. Just open that door 5 times a day. You'll get some. Those are someone who's there, but really, again, you're welcome to greet. For those who have personality, those who are outgoing, those it becomes easy for you. So please be. And the third thing is, we like to have some refreshments after Mass. But the problem is that we have refreshments at Boston Hall. It's like here, forget it, it's too far, all right? People don't want to walk from here to there. Even the Alpha Omega room seems like a journey. No, I've got my car. So we're thinking we would have refreshments right in front of the church or the plaza, right outside those big doors. That's it. So maybe you walk, there you are. Maybe have a tent and just a little food, And only that, when people drive by, say, what's the food? I like food. That works. But it's a place to gather. But we need people to help us out. So you want to change church? You want a church where your son and daughter will be at home? These are not radical things by no means. But maybe they're steps in the right direction. You know my permission to greet one another before? Substitute to the newcomer, whatever it takes. The radar goes off, I will greet them. Make them feel at home, and then please help us lose the different ministries. The young man was leaving the pier with 2 lobsters in his bucket. And the gate warden stopped and said, you need a fishing license to fish here. He said, fishing? You think I was fishing? I'm not fishing. These are my pets. So I come here every morning and I whistle, and they jump up and I put them in the bucket and I take them for a walk. And then I come back and I throw them back in the ocean back home. Yeah, right. So, you can get a hefty fine for fishing without a license. He said, you don't believe me? He said, just watch. And so he took his 2 lobsters and he threw them back in the ocean. And the game warden said, okay, buddy, I want to see you whistle and I want to see those lobsters jump out and get into your bucket. And he turned to the game warden and said, what lobsters? He was clever. He was a genius, a little sly. All right? And that's what Jesus' phrase is. Whatever it takes, whatever it takes, whatever it takes to bring your son and daughter back home. Whatever it takes, it's worth it. Because when they come here to St. Peter's, it's not so much what lobsters, but what strangers. There aren't any. Mary, would you please share some words on that great work in the Dominican Republic for us?